I think you also spoke briefly about price discrimination as a problem, right?
Yeah.
And can you elaborate a little more on that for me and the audience, if that is okay?
The whole world over, we live in a society which uses price discrimination. If you want to be a citizen of the 21st century, then by definition, you have to understand price discrimination. When Amazon, say, for example, says that for the next 10 minutes, this good is 10% off, what it is saying is there are certain people who will choose to buy only if the price is low enough. So we just bought a new 55-inch TV for our living room. It wasn't necessary. We had a perfectly well functioning TV, but we said, all right, during the whatever that sale is called, we will wait during that sale and buy a good TV. But if our TV had broken down in the month of August, then we would have had no choice but to replace it. Then we wouldn't have waited for a discount. How does Amazon understand that, hey, a certain section of society needs to buy a TV? A certain section of society is willing to wait to buy the TV. What it does is it says, all right, this is the price at which you can buy. Every now and then it'll be on sale. So what we are using is a form of price discrimination to figure out, can I afford to sell to certain people at a higher price, but to other people at a lower price? This simple example applied in the context of, say, for example, movie theaters is price discrimination except by time of day. This principle applied in the case of a plane is price discrimination, but on the basis of first class seats or economy seats. How do I, as a seller, understand that I want to charge the highest price possible that each consumer is willing to pay, but without making it seem unfair or quote unquote discriminatory? That's the art and science of price discrimination. Whether you're a seller or a buyer, you need to understand that this A is happening as a buyer, should be happening as a seller, and how to learn to use it to your best ends possible. That is the point of price discrimination.
I think that is amazing, and it just sort of took me back to our initial points about discussing on how startups are actually trying to get built and make impact in the Indian economy. And I think pricing is something that the West has largely mastered because they rely
Mhm.
on the principles of how
Yep.
to price something very well because they understand the culture, they understand the audience, they understand the purchasing power parity, and they understand the ability to actually they have significant access to data that tells them why people buy something.
Yep.
Okay, and they tie that to a certain cultural milieu, so to speak.
Mhm.
For Indians to be able to build large, successful companies, they also have to be able to master these many dimensions of pricing and
Mhm.
also be able to, really accept that people are not rational all the time. Once
Yes.
one aspect is that you will rationally wait for 6 months for that
Mhm.
sale to purchase the TV. And
Correct.
the other side is that, see, the TV breaks and you
Mhm.
immediately go buy a new one because you need a TV. So, do
Right.
you think price discrimination is almost like a bug in our response to price discrimination is almost like a bug in our own evolutionary system, where we are unable to distinguish between two types of rationality?
Whether it is a bug or a feature is a
I agree
fascinating
that
question.
that I accept, but I just used bug because it's the first. Because see, because rationality, in my opinion, is a very it's very nuanced, but you largely have a concrete picture of what are rational choices through principles of logic. Okay,
Mhm.
but when I am able to generally when we say something is mirrored, we generally say that it's the opposite. Okay, what price discrimination does is that it actually mirrors my choices, but it
Mhm.
shows my choices as largely the same and not
Mhm.
an inversion.
Mhm.
It's still the same TV. It's
Right.
still that same cost. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a lower cost, I accept it. Okay. But the need that makes us remove the card from our pocket to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's what I specifically mean.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, when I say bug or a feature, we might end up talking about behavioral economics. But are we susceptible to responding to external stimuli in terms of prices? Of course. Can sellers utilize their knowledge of how the mind works to make it more likely that we will say yes? Equally, of course. What we owe ourselves as consumers is to realize that this is happening all the time. And sometimes you might choose to be fooled by it, but you should know that you're being fooled. That is so. To give you one concrete example of this, the fact that the medium-sized tub of popcorn costs only 10 rupees less than the full-size tub of popcorn is, to use a phrase from economics, an irrelevant alternative. And all of us end up doing the mental calculation कि यार बस 10 रुपए ज्यादा देके डबल पॉपकॉर्न मिल रहा है तो ले लेते हैं बड़ा वाला बॉक्स. वो 10 रुपए वाला कम is a trick used by the marketeer. Nobody wants you to buy the medium sized tub of popcorn. The weird part is I know this, I teach this, but I still buy the large tub of popcorn. So I am being fooled, but I know that I'm being fooled. And then I say, all right, you know what? Even if I get a minor tummy ache, sitting with a really huge tub of popcorn is a point of going to watch a movie. So I'm fooled, but knowingly so.
It's
You should
almost
know
like
what you're
the
getting into.
it's almost like the tummy ache is actually priced into the price of the ticket and the popcorn and the evening. Yeah.
The market for popcorn is
Yeah.
efficient. Yes.
Absolutely. If there was ever one. uh, I am really interested in talking about this last bit on pricing so we can actually tie it together. What do you think Indian entrepreneurs and startup founders need to understand in terms of pricing for Indians? In terms of certain principles to consider, because we already have the Western playbook for how to actually price things. But since we are also talking about culture on a whole, and we're talking about state capacity, libertarianism, pro progress, pro prosperity, taking those into consideration, how should they think of pricing?
I'm not sure how to answer this question because I'm not an expert in terms of marketing and prices. The one book that I would recommend, simply because I enjoyed reading it and helped me understand the psyche of the Indian consumer, is a book written by a lady called Rama Bijapurkar,
Yeah.
who's written a book called We Are Like That Only, which goes some way. I won't say I'm an expert at all, but it helped me understand the psyche of the Indian consumer. And the one thing that I feel relatively safe in saying is the Indian consumer seems to be more value conscious than most other societies. Whether that is still true, whether a young Indian in the year 2023 will be equally value conscious as when that book was written, sometime in the late 1990s, perhaps not. But the Indian psyche seems to be one of trying to find out if I'm getting a good deal or not. But more than that, because it's not my area of expertise, pricing and marketing in the context of India, I don't think I can say much more than this.